thank you all for coming tonight, and thanks for Steph for inviting me to perform an excerpt from my novel with songs, Blame It on Hoboken. My background is actually, I'm trained as a journalist. I went to Columbia Journalism School, close to the Bronx, and left going, I love the idea of telling stories, initially nonfiction, now fiction, but in a way that I bring them to people and we connect live. The idea of printing something out and just leaving it there is cool, but I love this extra dimension, and so I started telling stories and taking them around the country, and music began to work its way into the stories, and this is, to me, a really exciting combination of having a novel that is punctuated by songs in the plot that I can actually play for you live. And I've just released my little EP. This is the first of 3 EPs of songs from the book. So this has 4 songs produced and recorded by a band in Denver. And then eventually there'll be a whole CD and a book. So that's it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And this is actually the theme song to the book. It's called Blame It on Hoboken. Hi there. Blame it on the season, blame it on the weather, oh, blame it for no reason. On a feather, you can blame it on Hoboken, but baby, stay with me. You can blame it on the game, blame it on the batter, oh, blame it on my name. It doesn't matter, you can blame it on Hoboken, but baby, stay with me. The magic kicks off Saturday night when your ferry pulls in for Brooklyn Heights. The gangplank's down, all the love bug bites. The Skylands goes forever as long as we're together. You can blame it on a fish, blame it on the ocean, oh, blame it on his kiss. If you get the notion, you can blame it on Hoboken. Well, baby, stay with me. Brooklyn Heights, all the gangplank's down, the love bug bites, the Skylands goes forever, as long as we're together. You can blame it on the fish, blame it on the ocean, or blame it on this kiss. If you get the notion, you can blame it on Hoboken, but baby stay with, blame it on Hoboken, but baby stay with, blame it, but don't tame it, write our names and flame with it, no 2 days the same on it, stake and claim for fame on it, blame it on Hoboken, but baby stay with me.
Mayor of Hoboken asked to adopt your song.
You know what? I was just telling Steph I'm going to try and send it over to MSNBC, who seems very interested in this story, and offer it up to Rachel Maddow or Steve Kornacki or Chris Hayes. Whoever wants it,
yeah.
I'd be thrilled. And it's weird how it all happens. It's nothing to do with that, I don't think. Maybe it does. Blame It on Hoboken, Chapter 1, Proof. The morning after William left her with the world's shortest Dear Jane note, several bittersweetly empty shelves, and a mathematical discovery that was either crazy, as in crazy brilliant, or crazy, as in totally nuts. Carolyn Cates took herself to breakfast at the diner across the street from her apartment in Greenwich Village. La Marisa wasn't the kind of place that made best of dining lists. The menu was limited. The staff had its quirks. But for its regular patrons, a meal at La Marisa could feel like a dysfunctional family reunion. In a good way. And Caroline was craving some serious comfort food. She walked through the glass and steel door of the little diner and took her regular seat in the third booth on the left, facing the door. She settled into the well-worn dimples of the black leatherette seat and waved hello to Grimelda, the gray-haired woman behind the takeout counter. Grimelda nodded and rang the metal-battered bell in front of her. At the sound, a silver-haired man pushed his way through the swinging kitchen doors. He was as jaunty as Grimelda was serious. He wore his regulation black and white waiter's uniform with the happy grace of a man sporting a custom tuxedo. He carried a round black tray on one palm as if he were a jeweler displaying a diamond tiara on a plush velvet pillow. The name embroidered over the breast pocket of his vest read, Nico. Now, Nico and Grimelda had worked at La Marisa as long as Carolyn had lived across the street. Some patrons joked that they had worked here since the building was constructed, but that would have been the 1930s. The gray-haired pair appeared middle-aged at most. Now, Carolyn felt that Nico and Grimelda's old-world ways made La Marisa a minor local landmark. This was one of the many reasons she loved the place. As a tour guide, odd landmarks were her specialty. Ding! Grimelda rang her bell again, interrupting Nico's elegant arrival. Nico cast a withering glance at his partner, and then he turned and winked at Carolyn as he headed over to the row of coffee urns lined up along the wall behind the cash register. All of them were labeled CAF. It was time for the next part of Nico's routine. He slid a heavy white cup and saucer under the urn closest to him and flicked up the spout. Coffee poured into the cup. Carolyn knew what was coming next, but the choreography of it all still impressed her. Nico turned his back to the urns and began to whistle a lilting tune. Carolyn didn't know the name of the song, but she had dreamed a fictional title for it. Carefree and wee-wee, lesserie, that is me. Across the room, Grimelda grimaced and shook her head. Nico whistled. The coffee poured. Carolyn watched and waited and worried just a little. Nico's moves were flawless, but Grimelda's tension was pouring into the room as surely as the coffee was pouring into the cup. Would Nico react in time? It looked like an even bet, but then, just as the cup and Grimelda's anxiety appeared ready to spill over, Nico stopped whistling, spun around, and closed the spout of the urn with a flick of his finger. He slid the full cup onto his tray and headed across the room to Carolyn's table. His shiny black shoes danced across the black and white checkerboard floor. Some fresh hot cafe for you. Nico set the tray in front of Carolyn, and then he pointed to the empty seat across from her. So, where is the boyfriend? Actually, Carolyn began. Who happened? Nico cut to the painful details, as Carolyn knew he would. Nico was not an unkind man, but based on everything he'd heard and seen, and he'd heard and seen a lot, pouring cafe for his patrons, Nico viewed romance the way a particle physicist might. He focused on the facts. According to the data he collected over the years, people were unstable particles, unsuited to pair bonding. Balanced today, unstable tomorrow. There was nothing personal about it, unless, of course, you were one of the particles being destabilized. Her name is, Lila Alice Firstmeyer, Carolyn said. Ooh, a Firstmeyer? Nico said. How lucky for him. Bad for you, of course, but for him, very lucky indeed. The truth was painful, but Carolyn had to agree with Nico's analysis. You see, Lila Alice Firstmeyer ran the Firstmeyer Foundation. The foundation's goal was to introduce alternative performing artists to the city's glitterati, creating a bond between its oddly creative and evenly incomed classes. Now, cynics on both sides said that somebody was taking advantage of someone or something somehow in this deal. But over the years, the foundation's artists and audiences had become genuine friends and mutual supporters. These days, no one had a bad word to say about the Firstmeyers. No one, including Carolyn. Oh, she would have liked to have called Lila Alice a home wrecker, or at least an apartment wrecker. But the truth was, Lila Alice Firstmeyer hadn't stolen William away. She had discovered him. A few months earlier, the Firstmeyer Foundation had awarded William a grant to pursue his new music project. It was a life-changing moment. Lila Alice presented the grant to William at the award ceremony, along with her sincere interest in his oeuvre. The rules of the grant required that they meet weekly to discuss the implementation of his project plan. And then, a Firstmeyer, Nico smiled. Really? Ding! Grimelda rang her bell. Nico said, and headed back to his coffee urns, where he began the latest round of his whistle the tune and fill the cup routine. It was a comforting sight for Carolyn on a day when so many things were changing. Ah, she said, sipping her coffee and settling back in her chair. Ooh, La Marisa's patrons exclaimed, leaning forward in their seats. A woman was crossing the little diner's threshold. Her golden hair fell to her waist in long, lovely, loose curls. Her eyes were pale gray. Her nose was narrow and slightly off-center, emphasizing the symmetry of her bow-shaped mouth. Her sleeveless gray dress came from a thrift shop, but her body's natural curves made it look like something hot off next season's designer runway. That face, that grace. A man sitting at a table by the door pulled a notebook from his pocket and began to sketch the woman as she walked by his seat. "Princess!" a little girl exclaimed to her mother. A song began to play on La Marisa's record player, which was the closest thing the diner had to an in-house music system. The singer's accent and the gentle tones of his solitary guitar, combined with the recording's pops and scratches, hinted that the song had come from a time long ago and a place far away. In a village by the sea where I lived as a child, the fisherman sang this song. It is the song of a lady called Marisa. The choir sang in harmony, Marisa, accompanied by a swell of stringed instruments. The language of our island, Marisa, means born at the sea. Oh, Marisa, the choir harmonized. Marisa, the fishermen sing as they cast their nets upon the large but lovely sea. Mon aime, mon ange, ma vie. When will you show your love for me? The sky is blue. Oh, but the sea is green. The sky is blue. Oh, but the sea is green. Mon aime, mon ange, mon ange, ma vie. When will you show your love for me? Marisa. Oh, Marisa. The woman stopped at Carolyn's booth. "Call me nuts," she said, "but I swear one of those mahjong players at table 4 just tried to goose me." "Hello, Nuts," Carolyn said fondly, as the woman plopped into her regular seat across the table from Carolyn. Then she added, "Hello, Ags." Now, Aggie and Carolyn had been best friends since the day they met, tackling a quadratic equation in 10th grade math class. Years later, they were still solving problems in their careers. Carolyn solved for X in the urban landscape each day. Aggie was a mosaic artist who turned odd pieces of things into a beautiful, unified whole. It was a fitting profession, given the number of hearts she broke daily. But her work was really beautiful on its own. Downtown curators had started talking to Aggie about the possibility of a solo show. This was Aggie's big dream. She confided it to Carolyn in high school math class, as they waited for their classmates to solve the equation they had mastered in minutes. "Someday," Aggie told Carolyn, "I'm going to be a famous artist with my name in big letters on a gallery window in New York City." "Oh, and I'll be there to toast you," Carolyn said. Did I say that right? Carolyn had spent most of her life living off the map in foreign countries with her family. Her knowledge of American slang was limited. "Oh, you said that perfectly," Aggie told her friend. "And there's no one I'd rather have toast me. And what will you be doing by then?" "Well, I'd like to be a tour guide," Carolyn said, but not a normal one. "Don't take this the wrong way, okay? Because I mean it as a compliment. Aggie said, but no one is ever going to accuse you of being normal. Carolyn and Aggie moved to New York City after college. Each worked hard at her own dreams, and their hard work was paying off. Magazine editors were featuring Aggie's work as accent pieces on their lifestyle pages. You had to look hard to see them sometimes, but they were there, tucked into bookcases or hung partly out of a frame on a wall. High-end stores were stocking her smaller pieces, and now curators were taking notice. Carolyn was not a normal tour guide. She took people to see overlooked sights, places they raced past in the course of a normal day. Tourists tired of double-decker buses and locals interested in underground history were booking her company, True City Tours, as a trusted source of real-world surprises. Now, the two friends couldn't be sure they'd succeed at their career plans, but Carolyn and Aggie felt truly at home in Manhattan, Isle of Misfits, and that was no small thing, no matter what kind of island you lived on. Mademoiselle! Nico arrived and placed a carafe of coffee on the table. Some fresh hot café for you. He gazed into Aggie's gray eyes. Their color reminded him of a stormy sea, of the infinite ocean, so lovely, so cruel, outside his childhood home. Ah, to be young, he thought in his mother's language, when life was sweet and everything was possible. Oh, to run fancy-free along the sands of time. Ding! Grimelda's bell rang. Nico headed toward the kitchen, trailing syllables of Mediterranean dialect. This is for you, Carol. Aggie handed Carolyn a small, silk-wrapped package. Inside was a little mirror edged with sea glass. The word believe was glued to the top of the mirror in silver letters, and the words Yagata were glued to the bottom edge. I'm really sorry about you and William, Aggie said, but you know my professional motto, breaking up can lead to beautiful things. Carolyn smiled. Oh, it's true for your personal life too, Aggie continued. We can go bowling. Tim will fix you up with his single friends from work. You know what they say about guys with green thumbs. Tim, Aggie's boyfriend, was head arborist at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens. Carolyn looked into Aggie's mirror. You're going to find the perfect guy someday, she heard Aggie say. Oh, actually, I'm going to find him in the next 2 months, Carolyn told the mirror. You keep up that positive attitude and you'll find someone for sure, Aggie said. Oh, forget the attitude, Carolyn said, pulling a heavy book from her bag. I've got a formula. The book was Aggie and Carolyn's high school yearbook. Carolyn handed it to Aggie. The design on the cover had been trendy when it had been printed. It was a medley of metallic rainbows and neon type and drop shadows, but it had aged into a visual artist's nightmare. What? Aggie recoiled at the sight of the cover's flashing colors. Did you see a mouse? A pale woman dressed in head-to-toe black called from a nearby table. Please tell me it's not a mouse. Cockroaches, I can handle, but rodents freak me out. Ding! Grimelda's bell warned the women. One of La Marisa's unwritten rules was no crosstalk between tables. It's not a mouse. It's a yearbook, Aggie whispered. Ew, that's worse, the woman whispered back. Grimelda glared. The woman in black picked up her newspaper. Aggie picked up the yearbook, tentatively, as if the cover might bite. Then she opened it, and her weariness disappeared in a flash of nostalgia. Would you look at this? Aggie was studying a picture of the school's fine arts club. There she was, standing in the front row, wearing oversized purple eyeglasses that obscured part of her eyebrows on the top and nearly reached her cheekbones below. Her hair was pulled into a side ponytail and was held in place by a puffy, floral patterned fabric band. Well, what does the high school yearbook have to do with love? Aggie asked Carolyn. Did you meet some guy we used to know there? Is this one of those I ignored you at 16, but wow, I love you now things that you read about in the wedding column of the Sunday paper with a cute little photo of the couple and a witty headline like, they passed in the hallway, but now they're walking down the aisle? I always thought they made those up, but maybe they're true. Is that what happened to you? Did you reconnect with someone from our past? Is he smart? Is he cute? She reached over and pulled something from the back of the book. It was an old homework assignment from math class, and it had been resting between the last page of the book and its back cover for the last 15 years. Its title page read, Euclid's Proof of Perfect Numbers by Carolyn Cates. She'd found the formula the night before while she was unpacking things to fill the empty space where William's stuff used to be. The formula had been tucked inside the yearbook, which was tucked in an old hat box on the top shelf of her tiny hall closet. Well, what does Euclid have to do with love? Aggie said. Carolyn leaned forward. Substitute me for the prime number in the equation, and you'll see, Carolyn said. You're serious? Aggie raised a pale eyebrow at Carolyn. Her odd beauty was only improved by the gesture. She looked like a blonde Brancusi. Oh, I'm totally serious, Carolyn said. And while I'm not keeping score, I'm pretty sure it's your turn to indulge me on something. Remember that time I dug up that what's it? You needed to do that thing you needed to do? It was a sign of their long-term friendship that Aggie and Carolyn didn't need specific words to communicate specific things. Or the time I found whatchamacallit's mother's whatever, Carolyn continued. Or the day I you-know-what'd for you when you wouldn't. Because I couldn't, Aggie said. Really? Carolyn said. Okay. Aggie held up her white paper napkin in surrender. I owe you one. Actually, you owe me 3. But who's counting? Well, after this we'll be even, Aggie said, flipping to the first page of Euclid and Carolyn's proof. I mean, who reads algebra in the morning? I mean, It was a hopeful sign. When Aggie was really interested in something, she hummed. Carolyn settled back in her seat and sipped her coffee. She put herself in Aggie's place, reading Euclid's proof for the first time in 15 years. It was a really exciting place to be, in her opinion. Euclid's proof was a guide to finding true love at a very few specific points in one's life. That's what Carolyn had realized the night before. You see, according to Euclid, a perfect number is the product of a prime and a square. As she read those words, Carolyn realized she was a living prime number. She was 31 years old. 31 was a prime. Her first response was to laugh at the coincidence of it all. Surely there was no larger message in the proof for her, but she kept going. The product of a prime number and another variable was a perfect number, Carolyn read. And that's when she had her second aha moment of the night. What if true love were the perfect number? It wasn't that big of a leap to think so. And true love, it's the stuff of sonnets and pop songs, but an ancient Greek math formula? Well, let's see. She turned her attention to the third factor of the proof. According to Euclid, a perfect number was the result of a prime number and a square. She was the prime, true love was the perfect, and the square was Eureka! Carolyn shouted from her corduroy couch. She was a modern-day Archimedes, minus the bathtub, since the bathroom of her apartment was barely big enough to house a shower. The square. Now that she saw it, she was amazed it had taken her so long to see her mistake. Euclid's proof was not a coincidence, and it was not a joke. It was a map for happiness, written with her in mind. See, Carolyn had always been attracted to odd men. The ones who looked like they'd been picked last in gym and never asked to dance, but who were brilliant, overlooked gems undercover. But it turns out what she needed was a square. Euclid was clear about that. She needed to find a square while she was 31 years old, and if she did, the result would be perfection. She'd have to move fast. Her 32nd birthday was 2 months away, but a person could fall in love in a minute, and she had 87,000 minutes left until her birthday. 60,000 if you factored in sleep time. Well. Aggie had finished reading Carolyn's proof. Isn't it crazy how all the variables line up? Carolyn asked her friend. Crazy, Aggie said. I mean, it's amazing that no one's ever seen the proof this way before. Amazing. That would be one way of putting it. Oh, come on, keep reading, okay? Carolyn studied Aggie's face for clues about what her friend was thinking. But Aggie wasn't giving anything away. She looked at ease, totally serene, rational. Aggie took a long sip of coffee. The gesture took a few seconds, but it felt like an hour to Carolyn. Seriously, Carolyn said, what do you think? Can I, double check a few things with you before I comment? Aggie said. Sure. Carolyn leaned forward. Double checking was good. Rational was good. Okay, Aggie said. True or false? You, Carolyn Cates, a 21st century woman, have chosen to use a 3,000-year-old mathematician as your matchmaker. True, Carolyn said. And you think this is a good idea because, oh no, I don't think it's a good idea, Carolyn said. I know it is. Finding Euclid's proof was like finding an overlooked landmark. I'd looked at it before, but I'd never really seen it for what it was. And that leads us to what you think you've seen in these pages, Aggie said. Oh, what I know I've seen, Carolyn interrupted. Do me a favor then, Caro. Help me see what you know. Because honestly, all I see here is 10th grade algebra. So Carolyn started from the top. According to Euclid's formula of love, but Carol, Aggie stopped her friend mid-sentence. This is the first problem with your proof. Love isn't a formula. Love is about screwing up. It's about the human element, the chance meeting, the spilled cup. The only thing crazier than thinking love follows a formula is thinking that true love equals perfection. You might as well try writing a proof about unicorns. I'm sorry if I've ruined your plans, Caro, but this proof won't help you find anything. Oh, you haven't ruined anything, Carolyn said. She held up Aggie's mirror. You gotta believe. The words sparkled in the diner's fluorescent light. Trust me, for the next 2 months, Carolyn said, stand by me, no matter what I do, no matter how it looks, and you'll see. I'm going to find the biggest square in town, and we're going to be perfectly in love by my birthday. What do you say to that? Hello, nuts. Now, in the next chapter of the book, we are with Carolyn at work. And she takes us to her favorite landmark in New York City, and it is the gravesite of a 19th century poet named Enid Hobb. And it's in a little churchyard, also downtown in Manhattan. And the inscription on Enid's grave has become the pop song of the spring. We can't stay there in this particular gathering, but you just need to know that Enid Hobb's gravesite is Carolyn's favorite landmark, and that the inscription on the grave has become the pop song of the spring. We'll get back to that possibly later, possibly tonight, possibly another time. We're going to move on to chapter 3, which is called Fast Forward. And we're with Carolyn now 4 weeks later. In her home office, where she's obsessing. Her work is going fine. She has tours lined up. Enid Hobb's grave is extremely popular this spring. Requests for new projects are coming in. And her personal life is busy too, but its results, they're a little less satisfying. You see, Carolyn has been following Euclid's formula for true love for a month now. She's been looking for a square guy, a thoroughly normal man in every nook and cranny of New York City. Finding things, well, that's her #1 skill professionally. She's a whiz at noticing landmarks that other people overlook. But apparently, her eye is not so good when it comes to finding a normal guy, something that really should be in plain sight. She's worked up a spreadsheet of heights and weights and hair colors of the average urban dwelling male using an actuarial table. And each day, she walks up to men whose physical characteristics match the ones on her list, and she tries to talk to them about the weather or sports. These are apparently topics that appeal to normal men, but Carolyn isn't really honestly interested in either one. So the best she can do is throw out a few buzzwords and hope that they'll ignite some kind of romantic chemistry. So, rain? She mumbles to a very normal-looking man on the subway platform. Football, she says to the man standing behind her at the salad bar, halfway between the peppers and the greens. She's hoping one of these men will respond to her by inviting her out to coffee, and then Her eyes will meet his, and quicker than a first-round draft pick can ace a goal, she and her normal guy will dunk the putt or birdie the basket and fall in love. Game over. That's how Carolyn imagines the process will play out. But all she's gotten in return for her efforts so far are a few puzzled looks and an invitation to a prayer meeting from a Jehovah's Witness who's thrilled to have someone approach him for a change. The good news, Carolyn reminds herself, glancing at her desktop calendar, is she still has a month to go before her 32nd birthday. Bad news is that her 2-month window to find the man in Euclid's formula is half gone. Carolyn's an optimist by nature, but she's a pragmatist at heart. Is her glass of romantic opportunity half full or half empty? Her office phone rings, interrupting her analysis and the increasingly twisted metaphor. The caller introduces himself as the Vice President of Human Relations at the Manhattan branch of Banque Suisse. His tone is polite, his accent is charming, but he sounds urgent. You may find my question unusual, Miss Cates, the man begins. Oh, unusual is my business, Carolyn reassures him. But I am in need of a professional solution, the man says. Ooh, please, go on, Carolyn says in her most professional voice. She reaches into the top drawer of her desk and pulls out a pen and begins to take notes in last week's unused calendar squares. As Vice President of Human Relations for Banque Suisse, I am responsible for the happiness of our employees and my employer. The chairman of our board of our institution, you see, is... The man pauses. Carolyn nods at the phone. He is a very demanding person, and I mean this in a very positive way. I understand completely, Carolyn says. Demanding, she writes on Les Wednesday Square. Now each year, we host a special celebration for our bank's executive trainees, but this celebration must be directly connected to the other chairman of the board. And what is the other chairman's name? Carolyn asks, ready to write it down. Oh, well, Frank Sinatra, of course. Carolyn raises an eyebrow, a gesture that the man on the phone can't see, but the silence delivers the message. Are you kidding me? Oh, no, Mr. Sinatra does not work for us, of course, the man from Banque Suisse says. He is dead, of course, and he is not a banker. But it is our chairman's wish to connect Mr. Sinatra and our company. In this way, we will show our new hires that Banque Suisse is cool, or should I say hot, or fete with a P, which makes no sense, of course. English slang is a very curious language indeed. I couldn't agree more. Carolyn is thinking back to high school. She had just moved stateside after a lifetime in some very remote places, and her classmates' expressions had confounded her. A cool chick? A hot trap? The man from Banque Suisse was still talking. We have taken our recruits to many famous Sinatra-related sites in years past, he's saying. But this year, our chairman says we need to offer a truly original Sinatra tour to our team. Something that will show these discerning young professionals that our financial institution is better than everybody else's, Carolyn offers. Do you think you can deliver this? It's going to take some research, Carolyn says, but yes, I can. This is a great relief for me. If you can send me your proposal a little faster than normal, this would be ideal. I'll do my best, Carolyn promises. Well, Carolyn is smiling as she hangs up the phone. A custom tour on a tight deadline with a dash of the impossible, it's her favorite kind of assignment. She does a quick search online to see what's new in the world of Frank Sinatra. She learns there's a Frank Sinatra wax museum in Las Vegas, and there's a vegan restaurant in Chicago that offers soy Frank Sinatra on its dinner menu. None of them are exactly a lead, but she sends off a few short emails, and then she checks the clock on her computer, and it's time to go. Once a month, Reverend Evans, who's the rector of the church where Enid Hobb is buried, invites his friends downtown to the historic Emerald Tavern to talk about big ideas. His original name for this event was libate, a ruminate. But everyone else just calls it drink and think. As Carolyn walks downtown, she passes through a neighborhood that isn't dangerous, but it does have a little bit of a dark side. And that's where this song comes from. It's the song that goes with the neighborhood as Carolyn is walking downtown, and it's actually called Downtown. Well, I'm walking downtown. I know where I'm going when I'm walking downtown. Thinking about it snowing as I'm walking downtown. Yeah, I'm walking downtown. Don't burst my bubble when I'm walking downtown. I don't want no trouble, I'm just walking downtown. There's a world outside. We're gonna find it, it's a carnival ride. Come stand beside it, whoa, you can find downtown. You can call me names, long as you call me, you can stake your claims. Spring and fall me, there's no one to blame. Downtown. Yeah, I'm walking downtown. The sun is sinking as I'm walking downtown. That's what I'm thinking as I'm walking downtown. I'm just walking downtown. So as I mentioned, Carolyn is going downtown. She's walking downtown to the historic Emerald Tavern, where Reverend Evans and his colleagues, Rabbi Wallace and Father Ted from St. Anne's on the Upper East Side, lead Drink and Think collaboratively each month. And this allows a rabbi, a priest, and a minister to walk into the bar once a month at happy hour, which is a source of endless amusement for the people who are there, especially the ones who've had a couple of drinks. This month's Drink and Think question, there's one question each month that Reverend throws out, and you can add to it if you like. And this month's question is, what is? People are asking each other, what is art? What is hope? And Carolyn, when her turn comes, asks, what is possible? It's a question she likes to ask a lot when she's working on a new tour. She feels like it might open her up to thinking about something or hearing about something that she hasn't considered. And so she's thinking about this Sinatra tour. She's on a tight deadline. She asks, what is possible? And the Reverend Father Ted, Rabbi Wallace, they're friends, a pair of post-conceptual artists called the Co-Johansons, all offer their opinions. And now Carolyn is heading home to do a little bit more work on her Sinatra assignment for Bogswies. Chapter 4, What Isn't? Carolyn left the tavern with the Rev and the other thinkers. She walked back to her apartment and checked her computer. She had emailed a few people to ask their thoughts about possible Sinatra sites. The first replies she read were polite variations on, sorry, I don't know. And then she saw this subject line, want to see Sinatra tonight live? She didn't recognize the sender, but the message was fascinating. It read, come on, Toots, put on your tour guide boots. See Sinatra sing live tonight in Hoboken, NJ. A cryptic set of directions followed. Take my way to the byway. Now, Hoboken was the birthplace of Frank Sinatra, and Hoboken was only a short ferry ride away from Manhattan, and the downtown ferry was only a short taxi ride from Carolyn's apartment. 30 minutes later, she hopped off the ferry in Hoboken, New Jersey, holding a printout of that mysterious email. Take my way to the byway. She walked to the end of the landing and started looking for a sign of where the my way might be. Having grown up in some pretty off-the-map places, she imagined this sign might be hard to find. Oh, but this was New Jersey, land of the loud, home of the bling. And so instead of finding a bent blade of grass to signal the way, she found a street sign at the end of the landing that read, Frank Sinatra Drive. Hello, my way, she said, turning onto the street. A few blocks later, she noticed a small red F glued to a stop sign. The F appeared to be made out of a bicycle reflector material. It glowed under the streetlight, making it pretty hard to miss if you were looking for it, which she was. This was the byway, Carolyn decided, and she turned onto a little alley that intersected the street. A small brick building stood at the end of the alley. A red neon F glowed in its front window. This was the place, Carolyn thought, and there was just one small and one large and muscle-bound problem standing in between her and this destination. The small problem was a members-only sign on the front door of the building. The large problem was a bouncer with a shaved head and a dauntingly taut blue suit guarding the door. Carolyn swore she could see the veins of his biceps blooming through the fabric of his suit jacket sleeves. The situation looked hopeless, but Carolyn had not come this far to turn around, and so she ducked into a nearby doorway, and she watched, and she waited for something to change, which it did. Coming through! Coming through! A young couple hurried past Carolyn toward the bouncer. The man wore a shiny gray suit and an olive shirt with wide lapels and cuffs that extended past his wrists. His pinky ring flashed in the street lamplight. The woman wore an orange cocktail dress and a brown bouffant. Is Frank here? The woman asked the bouncer. Who wants to know? The bouncer crossed his arms. A friend sent me, the woman said. This way, sweetheart. The bouncer opened the door and waved the couple in. Carolyn reviewed this scene in her head, memorizing its details, and then she left her hiding place and walked up to the door. Sorry, lady, the bouncer pointed to the members-only sign above the door. Is Frank here? Carolyn parroted the other woman's accent and inflection. Who wants to know? The bouncer crossed his arms. A friend sent me? Carolyn said, using the careful pronunciation of someone speaking a new foreign language. Well, those words transformed the bouncer's bravado into 200 plus pounds of pure charm. Right this way, sweetheart. He opened the door. Carolyn thanked him and stepped inside, into a small nightclub. It was the kind of nightclub that used to be called a jewel box, modest in size, but elegant in the style of its day, powered by sparkle and luxe. The walls were covered in red flocked velvet. A brass-edged bar ran down the far side of the room. Men in double-breasted suits sipped squat glasses of scotch, trying to catch a glimpse of their well-dressed reflections in the black veined mirror just behind it. Women twirled ruby-colored drinks with ivory-gloved hands. But it was the stage that was the true star of the room. It was positioned just so, offering the audience the best possible sightline. A single box-head microphone stood at the front, awaiting a singer. Stage right, a shiny grand piano awaited the band leader. Stage left was a set of curved bandstands, fitted with reading lights. The overhead lights dimmed while Carolyn studied these details. Every seat in the room was full, so she joined the SRO crowd along the back wall. A woman in a black cocktail dress stood to her right. They were squeezed together like neighbors on a rush-hour subway and ignored each other like the well-trained passengers they were. Ladies and gentlemen, an MC called from backstage, please welcome the star of our show, Hoboken's favorite son, the one and only Mr. Frank Sinatra. A skinny young man with piercing blue eyes parted the curtains and walked up to the microphone. The crowd cheered. Carolyn cheered with them. The young man had such magnetism. A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3. The singer began to sing. His voice was electric, and a funny electric feeling began to run up Carolyn's left arm. Evening, Toots. A man was tapping her on the shoulder. He wore a suit, like most of the men in the club. He had dark hair and dark eyes, which fit in with the crowd as well. His distinguishing trait was his nose. It looked as if it had been broken, possibly more than once. Maybe he's a professional boxer, Carolyn told herself. Maybe he's the kind of guy that doesn't mind a fight. Something about his touch told her that he was fearless, or maybe just cocky in a way that would make a person want to punch him in the nose. The young singer thanked the crowd and headed backstage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC said, "would you please welcome our second Mr. Frank Sinatra of the night?" A different man approached the microphone. He looked a little older than the first Frank, but his voice was just as compelling. The audience was silent, totally wrapped in the performance, all except for the man to Carolyn's left. "I'm Jimmy," the man held out his hand. "Jimmy Foss," he said, at full volume. Carolyn whispered, "I'm That electric feeling was running up her arm to her shoulder as she shook his hand. "I'm pleased to meet you." "So you found my way and the byway," Jimmy Foss said. "Good for you. Not that I had any doubts." "You sent me that email?" Carolyn whispered. "Shh!" The woman in the black cocktail dress hissed at Carolyn. "I like to think of myself as a helpful person. You were looking for a Sinatra-related place. I thought maybe I could help you with your search." Jimmy Foss continued, ignoring the woman in black, who seemed to be ignoring him in turn. "Now look, you can't bring your tour group here, but I know another place that might be perfect for your purposes. I can take you there later if you like." "What kind of place?" Carolyn whispered. "Lady, you want me to call security? Because I will," the woman in black hissed at Carolyn. "She's right, Toots," Jimmy Foss said. "It's disrespectful to speak when the show's going on." Carolyn mouthed the word in protest. We can talk at intermission, I promise." Jimmy Foss patted her mid-arm, and there was that funny feeling again. The second Sinatra finished his set. Some patrons lined up at the bar, others headed for the restrooms. A few headed outside, lighters in hand. Recorded music began to play, signaling the intermission, Sinatra's swing period. "Fire away, Toots," Jimmy Foss said. "Ask me anything you want." It was like getting 3 wishes from a genie with a New Jersey accent and a multiply broken nose. Carolyn didn't know how much time she had, so she asked Jimmy Foss everything she could think of at once. "How did you find me? How do I know you? Do I know you? What's the other place that might be ready for my tour? Oh, whoa, Toots." Jimmy Foss smiled. "That's a lot of questions. Dance with me, and I'll answer them. 1 question a dance." Carolyn followed Jimmy to the dance floor in front of the stage. She wasn't a skillful dancer, but she wanted answers, and if she had to step on somebody's toes literally to get those answers, so be it. But Jimmy Foss had enough grace for both of them. He led Carolyn across the floor between the other dancing couples with a sure but light touch. "So," Carolyn was asking her first question, when a man walked by them carrying a full cocktail glass. "Hey, 1 second, Toots." Jimmy Foss stuck out his foot. "Whoa!" The man tripped and fell into a woman who had been chatting with her friends. "Watch out, buddy!" the woman yelled at him. "Hey, I didn't mean to do that, lady." The man started to apologize to her. And then he stopped and stared. "But now that I see how lovely you are, I'm glad I fell." The woman smiled. "Tell me your name, sweetheart. Should I just call you Mr. Handsome?" "Why did you do that?" Carolyn asked Jimmy as they moved to the music. "Trust me, Toots. They're happy I did. It's a public service." Jimmy Foss danced them over to a woman standing alone by the edge of the dance floor. "Watch this, Toots," he said. And before Carolyn could protest, he blew on the woman's neck. The woman whipped around, elbowing a man mid-gut who had been making his way from the bar. "Hey!" the man cried out. Wow. Has anybody told you you've got the most beautiful eyes?" "I think someone just did," the woman said. "I don't know what you're doing, but this has to stop." Carolyn tried to pull away from Jimmy Foss in protest, but he steered her back into the most crowded part of the dance floor. It was like trying to jump off a merry-go-round. She couldn't focus on any point long enough to make her exit. A man approached, holding a brimming glass of something. "Don't do it," Carolyn pleaded. "Dare me not to," Jimmy Foss said. "But that doesn't make any sense," Carolyn said. "A person couldn't dare another person not do something, or could she?" "Too late, Toots." To Carolyn's horror, Jimmy Foss pushed the man with the champagne into a woman wearing a dress that bared one of her shoulders. The man's champagne spilled onto her exposed skin. "Hey!" the woman yelled, dabbing her shoulder with a handkerchief. "I don't know what hit me, miss," the man said, but, ooh, I'm glad it did. "Call me crazy, but I'm glad too," the woman said. "You see, Toots," Jimmy Foss told Carolyn, "all charm, no foul." "Oh no, you're going to get in trouble if you keep doing this. You know that, right?" Carolyn said. No wonder Jimmy Foss's nose looked the way it did. She wouldn't blame anyone here for popping him one. He had her safety to continue to consider too. I mean, she could only imagine the penalty for shoving guests around in this club, given how touchy people are about little things like whispering. "Seriously," she told Jimmy Foss, "you're going to get bounced if you keep pushing people around like this." "Not a chance," Jimmy Foss said, pushing a woman in a pink evening gown into a man wearing a blue smoking jacket. "Because we're in Hoboken?" "Because, Toots," Jimmy Foss said, "because they can't see me." And then he dipped her. Jimmy's move knocked the air out of Carolyn. Or maybe it was his words. "Oh, I know what you're thinking, Toots." Jimmy made his case as she regained her breath. "What does he mean? They can't see me. Am I right?" Carolyn nodded. "It's a crazy-sounding story, I admit. But listen, Toots, we live in crazy times. Think about it. Particles are waves. The universe is full of strings. You can see me. These people can't. These words sound crazy. But what's true is true." "Let me up!" Carolyn couldn't yell upside down, but she tried. And the fact was, there was no need to get up. Not really. She had found a surprisingly comfortable spot in Jimmy Foss's arms, but she was protesting on principle, because either she was being held upside down by a crazy man, or the other option was just too complicated to consider. If that wasn't enough, Jimmy's hands were sending that electric thrill up her arms. "Let me up!" Carolyn shouted. "Hey, your wish is my command, Toots. As soon as you say you believe me. Get me up now, or I'll make a scene." "Toots, I hate to break it to you, but you are already making a scene." Jimmy Foss pointed past Carolyn with his free hand. "As far as these people are concerned, you've been doing a backbend for like over a minute. And they're going to think that's even stranger when intermission ends in another minute or two. But I do understand your confusion. A guy no one can see but you. The good news is, I can prove what I'm saying. Allow me to do that, I'll let you up right now." Carolyn looked around upside down. Jimmy Foss was right. People were staring, and the band was returning to the stage. "Okay," she whispered. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific, Toots." Jimmy Foss smiled, and Carolyn wanted to punch him in the nose, but first things first. "I will listen to everything you have to say if you let me up," she told him. "Oh, okay then." Jimmy Foss pulled her upright. "Now, to repeat my claim, you can see me, these people can't. Here's the proof." Jimmy Foss ran toward the stage. He wasn't subtle about it. He waved at everyone he passed. If that wasn't enough to capture their attention, he yelled, "Hey there, Sinatra fans! Look at me!" No one in the crowd acknowledged his presence. But that was pretty normal for people living in a crowded city environment, Carolyn reminded herself. People fainted upright on the subway and nobody noticed. Was shouting hello in a crowded club that much different? "Oh, I know what you're thinking, Toots." Jimmy Foss yelled at her from across the room. He was standing at the edge of the dance floor, just below the stage. "The other guests ignore me. Big deal. But what about these bodyguards?" 3 large men were blocking the stairs that led from the dance floor to the stage. "I mean, they're paid to stop people from getting up there, don't you think?" Carolyn nodded. "Good. Okay, so watch this. Excuse me, Mr. Muscle for Hire. You mind if I step up there on the stage where only the Franks are allowed?" The bodyguard didn't move. He didn't say a thing. He just stared straight ahead, as if scanning the horizon for intruders, like Jimmy. "You see that, Toots?" Jimmy called to Carolyn. "Nothing." She saw it, but she wasn't buying Jimmy Foss's story. Not until she ruled out all the other possibilities. For instance, what if the club's bodyguards were like the guards at Buckingham Palace? Maybe they were paid to ignore people until those people became a serious threat to the stage's safety. Why? She had no idea, but it was a theory. I know what you're thinking, Toots, Jimmy Foss said. Maybe they're ignoring me until I do something they can't ignore? Okay, watch this. Jimmy walked past the bodyguards onto the stage. No one could ignore that, Carolyn thought. And yet, everyone did. The guards, the audience, everyone except her. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC had returned to the stage. Welcome to the second half of tonight's show, starring the man who says, let's swing, let's fly, let's dance, Mr. Frank Sinatra. The crowd cheered again. You're gonna love this part, Toots, Jimmy Foss said, walking up to the Frank center stage microphone. The third Frank Sinatra of the evening parted the curtain at the back of the stage and walked into the mic, inches from Jimmy. What do you say, Hoboken? Is this one heck of a night? The third Frank said. The crowd cheered. Good evening, folks, Jimmy Foss called into the microphone. My name's Jimmy Foss, and I'm going to be singing a duet with my friend Frank here in a minute. What do you say to that? No one said a thing. This song is dedicated to all of you, the third Sinatra said. The crowd cheered again. And my part of the song is dedicated to you, Toots. Jimmy Foss pointed to Carolyn at the back of the room. No one turned around. 1, the third Frank counted off the beat. 2, Jimmy joined with Frank. 3. And then, just as he promised, Jimmy Foss sang along with the third Frank. The song was swinging and bluesy, and Jimmy's part really wasn't that bad. When the song was over, he stepped between the bodyguards and made his way back to Carolyn. Have I proved my case? Or have I proved my case? He said. You can see me, they can't. You hear me, they don't. But how? And why is that? Carolyn asked. Jimmy Foss shrugged his shoulders and rolled his eyes. Why? That's a question for guys with bigger brains than mine. And if I had the answer to how, trust me, Toots, I'd bottle the formula. I'd be rich. You know how many people would like to disappear but still be around? Ladies and gentlemen, the MC introduced the fourth and final Frank of the evening. He was a commanding figure, but his blue eyes looked weary in a way that pulled at Carolyn's heart. Folks, the fourth Frank said when the crowd had finally stopped cheering, life on this gorgeous marble we call Earth, let me tell you, it's a fickle thing. The head shrinkers and the deep thinkers will tell you pain, it's a part of life. But if you ask me, pain and suffering and sorrow, they're overrated. So do this for me, would you? The next time life slips you a Mickey, don't let it get you down, folks. Instead, you look up at the sky. You find a star to call your own, and you tell it to change the game so you're on the winning team. You tell that star, Frank sent you. Because life ain't fair, and luck ain't a lady. But the stars listen to Frank Sinatra's wishes, and they'll listen to yours too. Woo, the crowd cheered. Nice words, Pops, Jimmy Foss mumbled. Time to hit the road, Toots, he said to Carolyn. What? No! Carolyn wanted to hear the fourth Frank. Hey, look, you want to find a landmark, or you want to hear an old man sing? Your choice, Jimmy Foss said. Frank, Frank, Frank. The crowd was cheering. Carolyn was torn, but really she had no choice. I need the landmark, she said. Jimmy Foss took her hand and steered them through the crowd to the door. Carolyn felt that funny tingle where his palm touched hers. And now, Toots, he said, it's time for you to see the second greatest sight in town, besides me. A little bit, and you can ask me all the questions you want. I was not a popular kid, Toots, Jimmy told her. They had walked back up the alley to Frank Sinatra Drive into the sleepy streets of Hoboken after midnight. Now, I know that might surprise you. Sorry, what? Carolyn had lost her focus momentarily. She didn't normally take walks to unknown places in the middle of the night with strange men. This was not a normal night. Jimmy Foss, to say the least, was not a normal man. But she felt okay. She felt safe as they walked from the Friends of Frank's club to his landmark. The only uncomfortable thing about the situation, in her opinion, was that she wasn't leading the way. Yeah, so one day in homeroom, teacher's taking attendance, calls my name, Jimmy Foss was saying. I say here, she says my name again, I say here, she says absent. You see what I'm saying? Carolyn shook her head. That's okay. I didn't get it at first either. I think, okay, teacher's pulling a prank. Who knows why? And to be honest, Toots, I'm thinking to myself, who cares? The old lady wants to have a little fun, it's okay with me. But then I go to class number 2. Same story. I'm here, but I'm absent. That's what they say. By the end of the day, Jimmy Foss was convinced his teachers were not pulling a prank. Neither were the students who kept bumping into him in the hallway. Now, actually, that sounds like normal high school kid stuff, Carolyn said. Toots, Jimmy said. No offense intended, but my peers weren't exactly smart enough to pull off a stunt like that. Okay, so no one at school could see him. That was weird, but it wasn't all bad. And then Jimmy went home, and no one could see him there either. That's horrible, Carolyn said. Jimmy Foss shrugged. My family didn't take it as hard as you might think. Carolyn's face registered her shock. Oh, don't look so worried, Toots, Jimmy Foss said. This all happened a long time ago. Plus, you know the saying, every cloud has a silver lining? That's true for me, too. The cloud is that 99% of the world cannot see me. Here's the silver lining. Every so often, a very kind and beautiful woman sees me. Who knows why? But it's one heck of a consolation prize, if you know what I mean. Carolyn nodded. And then she blushed. So, here we are, Jimmy said, stopping in front of a gray building with a large white sign out front. Hoboken Post Office. Now, Toots, you may be wondering, what does the Hoboken Post Office have to do with Frank Sinatra and your tour? It's an excellent question, which I shall now answer. The city of Hoboken will be renaming this place in 10 days. And as it happens, the building's new name, the Frank Sinatra Post Office. It's going to be one heck of a ceremony, Toots. The mayor's going to cut a big ribbon, the friends of Frank are going to perform, it's going to be local, yet global, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Trust me, call City Hall in the morning. They'll confirm the details. But tell me, is this place perfect for you? Or is it perfect for you? It is perfect, Carolyn said. Her client, the man from Bunk Suisse, had asked for a site, a Frank Sinatra site, that no one had ever seen. Something Sinatra with a professional twist. And here it was in living color, or more accurately, putty-colored stone. But still, it was as perfect as a custom-made suit. The occasion would be official. The live music would make it fun. I can't thank you enough, Carolyn told Jimmy Foss. This is exactly what I needed, and you found it. The sky was growing lighter. The hint of daylight made Carolyn yawn. She'd been up all night. But our work here is done, Toots, Jimmy Foss said. Let's get you onto the ferry. Carolyn and Jimmy walked to the ferry dock. Across the river, the first boat of morning was pulling away from the Manhattan side. The little craft appeared to tug up the pink and gold rays of the sun as it chugged toward Jersey. Thank you for everything, really, Carolyn told Jimmy Foss as the boat drew close. It's all in a night's work, Toots, Jimmy Foss bowed. But if you should ever need my help in future, you just give me a call. Carolyn nodded, closed her eyes. Jimmy's words sounded nice. She saw the calendar on her desk. She was falling asleep on her feet when an idea awoke her. Well, I do need your help. I mean, that is, can you find a certain man for me? She asked Jimmy Foss. Well, it depends. Is he lost? Jimmy Foss asked. No, he's not lost. I'm just having a hard time finding him. Well, Toots, now I'm lost. Can you start again from the top? And so, Carolyn told Jimmy about Euclid's formula for true love, and how, as a woman in her prime at age 31, she needed to find a truly normal guy, a square, to produce a perfect number, true love, before she turned 32 in 29 days. It's really simple once you do the math, she said, except for the part about finding the square. For some reason, I'm having trouble with that. I mean, that's why I need your help. I saw the way you pushed those people together at the Friends of Frank's Club, and I thought maybe you could do that for me, only on purpose. Jimmy Foss shook his head. What I did for those people at the Friends of Frank's Club, Toots, that wasn't an accident. It was art. Those were well-planned, custom-made romantic matches based on serious research. You planned all those those moves? Aw, down to the last tickle toots. The couples I created tonight are built to last. I'm a great matchmaker. Actually, I'm the best. Oh, well, if you're the best, then you can help me, right? Carolyn said. My perfect square is out there. All I need you to do is find him this month while I'm still in my prime. Toots, Jimmy Foss began, and there was a bump underfoot as the ferry docked at the landing. Look, my lifestyle, it's pretty unusual, but for you to bank your future on prime numbers and squares, I hate to tell you, but that's crazy. Carolyn's face flushed with anger. She was getting tired of people telling her she was crazy. First Aggie, and now Jimmy. Talk about someone who shouldn't be throwing stones. Oh, so you won't find my perfect square for me, she said. Or maybe you can't. She glared at Jimmy Foss. I could find a square guy for you on the moon. Jimmy Foss shook his head. Then do it, Carolyn said. Do whatever it takes. I don't care how, but find him. Okay, Jimmy Foss said. You win. I'll find your guy. You got my word. That's it, Carolyn said. Yeah, Jimmy Foss said. I'm on the case. The search has started. I'll find your perfect guy, Toots, and I'll do it in less than a month. And now, it's time for you to float home. Whoa, can't thank you enough, Carolyn said as she walked up the gangway. Oh, yes, you will, Toots, Jimmy Foss said as he walked away, because this is going to cost you big. How big? Carolyn called after him. Jimmy Foss turned around and smiled. You should have asked me that before you hired me. The ferry pulled away from the dock. Carolyn sailed into the day with hope in her